Thank you so much for joining me, everyone, today for our 2024 Digital Enterprise Operations Trend Series. We're very excited to kind of shed some light on trending topics that we've been seeing in the industry with some of our experts here at Third Stage to help us unpack and really define what these trends look like so you can consider them for your 2024 ERP or digital transformation strategies. So, with that, I'm very excited to introduce my colleague and friend, Mitch Ottoson, who's going to talk to us today about platform ERP. So, Mitch, if you could, I know our audience has heard from you before, but just do a quick intro of your background and what you do here at Third Stage.
Sure, I'd be happy to. Well, first, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. So my name is Mitch Ottoson. I'm Director of Transformation here at Third Stage. My whole role is really to connect with our clients when they first reach out to Third Stage and understand where they're at in their transformation journey. Everyone seems to be coming in at a different place. So what we try and do at Third Stage is really meet our clients where they're at, and to help to build a roadmap and a plan for how they can get to that third stage that you hear us talk about so often. So I'm responsible for understanding, diagnosing, and then helping to build a team to help to execute what it is that we can do to help you get to that transformational third stage.
And that we're going to learn from today, that really understanding that diagnosing, prescribing type of stage in your project planning. So we talk a lot, and I'm going to kind of introduce some pre-work as I always do for our audience. We talk a lot about the importance of this phase zero planning and understanding the approach. And before we dive in, I want to offer our audience our phase zero planning checklist and mini series. So I'm going to pop that up on the screen here. You can scan the QR code if you're watching the video, or if you're in our audio format, you can get it in our description and episode notes so that you can really go through. It's a checklist that Mitch and our senior leadership team have put together to really make sure that you're checking all the boxes and effectively planning and executing your digital transformation. Because we know, and you know better than anyone, Mitch, in your restoration work, that usually about 70 80% of digital transformations fail. And what failure means to each client is different. But this checklist and mini series that actually take you through each step kind of showcases the planning piece of that. So I highly recommend that. The other thing I'll mention before we really get into this conversation, as always, our mission at Third Stage is to drive conversation. So I highly encourage you to join the conversation in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. These questions are not just for Mitch, they're for you as well. So they can really drive that transparent conversation around what is platform ERP strategies. So with that, Mitch, what the heck is platform ERP strategies?
Other than a really good hashtag for when we're doing some searches, I think of platform ERP really as being a technology ecosystem. When you think of all that goes into an ecosystem and how everything needs to work harmoniously, it's thoughtful design and consideration for what your users are doing and the best way to go about doing things. And what we're seeing in today's environment is that there's a ton of overlap in tools. There's so many tools that can do so many different things. And so you really have to take your time, take a step back and understand what's the right tool for the job. Where does the source of truth come from, and how can my other systems rely on that source of truth to make informed decisions and data for my users?
For sure. Absolutely. And when we talk about kind of that concept, I really want to dig into like kind of what's right for you in a little bit, but just going into kind of our definitions. ERP platform strategies, it sounds like that approach is pretty much the standardized approach for every project. Is that correct?
Absolutely. If you're doing things in a silo when you are considering ERP work, in my opinion, you're doing it wrong. You need to be considering the other fringe systems that your ERP is connecting to and relying on, or possibly passing data to, and making sure that it's an end-to-end experience and not just living in this one small vacuum.
For sure. And that seems to be kind of a main trend when we talk about in 2023. I feel like it was the year of best of breed. We talked about that. That was really kind of the main I guess comparison between core ERP and best of breed. But it seems as though we've kind of moved into where they can live together in one quote unquote ecosystem,
Right.
and really where it's not best of breed, it's almost best for you,
Yeah,
right, as a business.
I would completely agree with that. When you look at some of the name brand tools that are out there, there's a reason that everyone isn't running Salesforce for their CRM. That's, for so many years, those two tools were just synonymous with one another. Where if someone says Salesforce, they're talking CRM, but that's not the way it is anymore. The right tool for the right job is more important than having, the name brand or the best tool that's out there. You can accomplish a lot of things with, right sizing and finding the right tool for what it is you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, all very good insights, Mitch. And I think the thing that we've really seen in kind of the marriage between these two approaches is that idea of platform ERP, but then really going to that deeper level of defining what is really right for you. So let's dive into understanding that approach. When does that really start in the project timeline of knowing what your approach needs to be as far as technology?
Yeah, it's a good question. And for my projects, I like to get that started as soon as possible. When we start an engagement with a client, we typically start by trying to understand their current state and their ideal future state. It starts with the strategic roadmap and the executive conversations on where it is you want to go, and then understanding the flows and how you want the end-to-end process to look, and then deciding where the handoff should take place, because an end-to-end flow likely doesn't just take place in your ERP. It makes it as far as the ERP can go, and then it hands off to another system and vice versa. What we're finding is that handoff can take place in multiple places along the way, and it can be done effectively. So trying to figure out where is the optimum place for that handoff to take place, to ensure that you keep clean master data, and that you're actually then setting up your other system to do what it does well. So it's finding that balance.
Absolutely. I mean, balance is key really to understanding that, but also you hit on something that I think is so important when we talk about the platform ERP approach, and that's work streams and business processes. So, we see a lot of times a huge red flag is when a client comes to us with broken or unhealthy processes and they want a technology to kind of heal that. Can you talk a little bit about the dangers of unhealthy processes and integrating new technology, especially when we see new vendors in the AI field, in the kind of niche fringe system field, really push this narrative that I can fix your broken business with my technology?
So it's a great question, and we see that so much in the vendor space today, where it's the silver bullet that'll fix all of your issues. And what we found is that really the ripple effect of implementing some of those solutions can create more problems than what you had before. So by not going through the end-to-end process and thinking about the logical place for that handoff can really get you into a lot of trouble. It can make your master data a mess, and it can really have your user confused on where is actual the source of truth and what information is right, because you're getting different information that can conflict with each other.
So it sounds like really the trend for this should almost be establishing healthy business processes in order to enabling that technology to be able to do what it needs to do. We talk a lot about kind of the definition of artificial intelligence, especially on kind of the trending side, and it is just that. It is artificial. Like we talk about what is and the definition of artificial. It's not real, right? Intelligence. So it doesn't work the way that a human brain would work.
Right.
And so, what we need to talk about, I think, in that is how do we ensure that our business as a holistic view is healthy enough for that interoperability? And I know you work a lot with integrations, interoperability. So, can you
hmm
talk a little bit about the importance of making sure that your data has a healthy kind of network to travel through in order to make strategic decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. And first and foremost, I would say I'm a big fan of the AI, machine learning, all of those things. I think it is a lot of where we are going. But in order to do so, you need to have a solid foundation. And if you try and just solve your problems with implementing these complex algorithms, you're going to have more confused users than you're going to receive benefit out of it. What you need to do is have a solid business process where you can strategically insert some of these algorithms to get the right outputs. And if you don't have the clean data and good historical data to be able to support these things, you're gonna it's garbage in, garbage out. You're going to end up getting a mess because you didn't do what you need to with establishing the solid foundation.
Absolutely. And that solid foundation, we've kind of established that either target operating model, current state assessment, those operational efficiencies really need to be healthy. So when you're
Yep.
looking at in implementing a new technology or an ERP, how do you ensure that you understand the nuances of those integrations? Because I can only imagine that's a huge complexity when looking at new technology. All right, I have my processes, I have, a technology that I'm considering. How do I ensure that they match?
It really is going back and getting to basics and understanding where does the actual data of the field come from, where is the source of truth, and then what are the manipulations that is done to that data downstream, and is that the right thing to do? I always talk to my clients about establishing that source of truth and understanding where data is coming in, and when you are most confident about it. Oftentimes, it's the different slicing and dicing that has taken place. You know, 3, 4, 5 layers away from where that actual raw data comes from, that is the source of truth. And that's the figure that's confusing people. So being able to trace your data back to where it originates from and making sure that that is clean, and then fixing it from there is huge.
Absolutely. And really understanding, as you said, that source of truth, but really, where is your data coming from? What does it look like? And understanding that master data management is going to be a significant pillar of your strategy, because interoperability cannot happen without healthy data. So that's, good data hygiene is going to be one of those phase zero planning pieces that we talk a lot about. And that's a huge job,
Oh
especially
yeah.
for our small to mid tier organizations that are working on scaling or that have had kind of a piecemeal approach to their technology and they're kind of ready to graduate into something a bit more sophisticated. So that's definitely so important.
Yeah, a lot of those organizations we found they kind of will put band-aids or duct tape onto things to kind of keep the business operations going. And when you're talking about pumping a lot of data that a lot of these algorithms need through your pipes, we speak in analogies a lot. So this one is a plumbing one. If your plumbing is held together with tape, you're going to have leaks, and hopefully that leak doesn't cause a bigger problem. So it's really finding the source of where that issue is coming from.
And I'm curious, Mitch, we talked about on a recent episode of Ground Control, which is our long form podcast. If you don't listen to it, highly recommend subscribing to our weekly podcast, Transformation Ground Control. We talked a lot about the trend of those leaks in those kind of SMB type industry or businesses that lead to really critical cybersecurity breaks. We used to see things like we covered in a few weeks back, the big cybersecurity hijack in the casinos in Vegas, and we've seen those on a huge high profile. But it seems as though we've moved to cybersecurity issues in more to those small to mid tier size businesses, and that's a real issue within their technology portfolio and strategic approach.
Yeah, it's everywhere, and you're seeing that hackers are getting more sophisticated, and they're doing it in a way that they can target these small mid businesses. Um, and it's tough because you have to make these strategic decisions about where's the right place to invest into my tech stack. And security is one that gets left behind a lot of times because people think that they're too small to really be on anyone's radar.
Yeah, and a lot of times we think we have this, it's a lot like artificial intelligence. We don't really understand, so we vilify this unknown technology. A lot of times pop culture leads into that and how we see it represented in the media. And it's the same with cybersecurity. A lot of times we see cybersecurity breaks for the most integrity based intents. They had no idea, your workforce, that this was an opening or a leak. It's not, this nefarious bad actor that wants
Right.
to, office space your entire organization, right? It's someone that didn't realize because there was lack of communication and education in that operability strategy.
Yeah. Well, what we find is it's usually done with the best of intentions. People have this can do attitude, and they find themselves working around the structure and, you know, around the process that has been established in order to get something done. And, instead of addressing the symptom, we want to go to the cause of what is the cause of that, and how can we prevent people from extracting that data and manipulating it and emailing it out or posting it onto a web server that really has, terrible authentication, or something along those lines. I mean, we can be controlling your environment a whole lot better by staying in your systems.
Absolutely. And I think a piece of that as we go into understanding what that looks like is all about that key awareness. And understanding what that looks like. You talk a lot about your source of truth. Well, understanding where that truth may have those leaks or those areas in which could be opportunities for cybersecurity breaches. So I'm hoping you can kind of take us through a pros and cons scenario in this next piece and talking about kind of what does it look like to choose a core ERP versus what does it look like to choose maybe a more of a modular based approach, open source or best of breed. So let's focus on some of the pros of a core traditional ERP system. What are some pros of that approach?
Yeah, I would say some of the pros that come in with that is that um, the integrations tend to be a lot more simple because the different modules are designed to work together. The flow of information is just one thing that I don't want to say you don't have to worry about it, but it comes as part of the package. So a lot of these have single databases, which allow that information to flow freely without needing to establish an integration. So that's the big pro that I see in my mind.
And so it sounds like what we're looking at a core ERP might be things like less internal maintenance needed on the IT side.
Yep.
So that might be a consideration, right? And these data pathways are already established for you. The integrations are already built. Does that sound kind
Yep.
of on
Integration's
the
already
line?
built, and you're on a common data model. So
Mhm.
you're absolutely right that it is less maintenance for your IT team to keep up with, because your forms and structures all are going to be, for the most part, consistent across the different modules within that tool.
And on this series, we're actually going to talk about IT labor shortages. So that's a huge trend that we look at 2024 is making sure you have those
Yeah.
efficiencies and understand, again, that awareness key of what does your system actually take to maintain and continue to be healthy and performing to maximize that ROI, which is a huge spend around your ERP system. So, can you talk about some on the other side of that, some pros to maybe a best of breed approach or a modular based approach?
Absolutely. I've seen a lot in the CRM space. There are a lot of vendors that are doing some really cool things. And they're doing, they have low code solutions. They have things where really a business user can be, driving the changes and manipulations that they need to see without changing the code. And so they're able to do that, and you're able to avoid having, a system administrator or a dedicated IT resource to make reports, to make workflow changes, things of that nature. And so those are things that when you're in a traditional ERP setting, you don't necessarily want those low code changes because it's not as heavy lifting as what is needed, and so it's just not a good fit. And so what you see is with some of these these fringe solutions and coming through and creating that ecosystem, you can solve for some of the labor shortages by adopting one of these systems and integrating it with your ERP.
Absolutely. And that makes a lot of sense for specific businesses. What comes to mind, I'm wondering your feedback on it, is maybe a business that has a specialized manufacturing within their vertical or a specific competitive advantage. We see a lot of businesses that are like, I want to customize, I want to customize. And a lot of times on those core ERP, that often isn't something we recommend
All right.
because of the complexities that it adds to the system.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's another really good space where we see in manufacturing, some of the ERPs, it's better to just keep them to what they do well, which is a lot of the financials, and then to go and get an MES or something like that, where it can handle some of these more complicated, complex manufacturing routes and bombs and work orders and everything that needs to go into making a more complicated product or more complicated runs. Let the specialized technology help your business processes there, and then pass the key information back to your ERP to capture what happened and what the impact to inventory was.
Absolutely. And if you're not familiar with an MES, no worries. Head over to our YouTube channel, and we have not only our top MES systems. If you are heavy manufacturing, you want to look at that, but also what is an MES system, because those are always good things to understand. And that's the definition of our conversation today, is the platform approach. Say you are a heavy manufacturing business or heavy food and beverage distribution, there's vertical specific applications that can always enhance what that competitive advantage is. Because the balance that you talked about earlier, Mitch, is really understanding what are your needs of the business and
Mm-hmm.
where can the technology meet me without losing our true identity and strategy as a business is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the values that we bring to the table in partnering with us. I had a client that was big in mining, and they thought that they needed a mining specific solution. That if it wasn't a mining specific solution, that it wouldn't work. They found that manufacturing and mining, the way that they did it, was very similar to one another. So they were actually able to take a lot of those workflows and repurpose them, and they for their business more of that all in one rather than the platform approach made sense for them, and we were able to help guide them in that direction based on understanding their business needs and the requirements. That's not a good fit for everyone, but being able to get down to what it is you're looking for and distilling it and take actionable steps is huge to have a partner for.
Absolutely. And that's such a great case study. And shameless plug for our case studies. If you haven't heard them, they are on our YouTube channel and our website. But that always is just helpful, like, especially if you're in an industry like mining that really is specific, like aerospace and defense. That's very specific. Those areas. And a lot of times that's why industries come to us, is because we have no other goals besides making sure you achieve your ROI on new technology. So great point there. So let's talk about some of the cons. I started with the positive, moving in the negative. Let's talk about some of the drawbacks of choosing a core ERP system.
Yeah, absolutely. I think some it depends on which system you're looking at, but when you look at the really good all-in-ones, some of them can be expensive. And so looking at a few large functions of your business, in order to find one that does a good job in your finance and accounting, your CRM, your manufacturing, whatever your business needs, it's hard to find one that's well-rounded that isn't very expensive.
Absolutely. And that's a huge consideration, right? Is budget and really understanding budget, but not only that, total cost of ownership. And that's a huge thing, especially as you know, that we've seen with the move to SaaS based products too,
Oh
is
yeah.
really understanding how much does this cost, right?
Yeah, and I'm also a big fan of the SaaS model, but it comes with a lot of carrying costs where you used to be able to purchase one time an on-premise solution and have it for 20 years. Now you need to pay for that subscription over and over again for the next 20 years. And so it changes the way that you think about your technology and if it makes sense to continue with a large investment like that or to go a little bit smaller and more nimble.
Absolutely. And that's a huge piece of that. And then so let's talk about some of the pros, which I assume you might say cost for the modular or best of breed based approach. What are some pros around that?
Well, what I found is that you really have the ability to right size the different solutions for that area. So, if you have very simple CRM needs, you might be overpaying with a very well rounded ERP solution that has a CRM module. You can, I feel confident that a lot of companies can do their CRM functions in a much more lower cost application and integrate it rather than relying on a potentially very expensive module that does the same thing. You also have to think about specialization. We talked about these companies that are coming up. There's a reason that there are thousands of vendors out there. People focus on one area and they get really good at it. And so when you look at some of these large ERPs that say we do everything all under one umbrella, I have questions about how well they do absolutely everything compared to some of these niche solutions.
Absolutely. And a lot of times they haven't been around that long. Right? So maybe you did everything really well for one client, but
Right.
so it's, that's why the evaluation process and those demos are really critical. Another thing you can find on our YouTube channel that Mitch helps us with a lot is just understanding how do you maximize your demos, and really understanding what do you want to talk about versus what does the vendor want to talk about, and making sure those requirements, those demonstrations are a good use of your time. Because, like a lot of things, those can go in a different direction where you want to make sure that it's the right fit for your technology and your business.
Absolutely.
So, one piece I want to unpack on this, because I can't go an episode without talking about the people side, but I think a huge piece of the platform approach is we talk a lot about the integrations, the technologies, the work streams, the healthy processes. How important is considering your people side, your workforce, your culture, your user adoption, all those people strategies within this platform approach?
I'm really glad that you went there, and that we're very much on the same wavelength as far as looking at the people aspect of digital transformation. When you look at a core ERP, one of the benefits that you see is that it should be a common user experience across the board. The way that you navigate, the way that pages look and feel, some of the nuances of the technology are similar from module to module. So I do find that those tend to be a little bit easier to adopt, especially if you have folks that are navigating the system across multiple different functions. So that's definitely a pro that I see. Another way to look at it, user specific type of scenarios, where you have to look at what is my team looking for from a user experience. If you have a team that is manufacturing, typically is a little bit less nice on the eyes from a UI experience compared to some of the other technologies out there. Is that okay? Or do you have a workforce that really needs to have that slick interface to respond to the technology? Um, it's an important factor that definitely needs to be considered.
Yeah, the dashboard phase.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants a beautiful who doesn't love a gorgeous dashboard,
I'm
right? But
guilty.
sometimes are those dashboards accurate should be the true question.
But it
And are
looks
they
nice.
helping us? Yeah, right. Exactly. And I think that people side of it, not only from the pros and cons for the different approach, but also understanding that there is kind of, as we talk about it, a strategy here where we talk about people, process, and technology. And we do that in a hierarchy. If your people and your organization is not ready for a new technology platform, portfolio, ERP, best of breed, AI, any sort of technology, it's not going to be successful within your business. So, that's something that we look at exploring from a holistic point of view in that phase 0 planning checklist, is really talking about that. So can you talk about the importance of kind of assessing your organization, the hard metrics around the science behind making sure that your people and organizational culture is ready for new technology?
Yeah. Well, and first, I have to give our team a little bit of a shameless plug here. Um, it's so much easier for a third party to come in and to get an accurate picture of what's going on with your people, uh, because you get an unfiltered response. So many times when there's internal transformation teams, you find teams kind of giving the answers that people want to hear, or worried about the brushback of or the blowback of saying things the way that they are. So if you think that you might be in one of those environments where your users won't give you an accurate, honest answer, um, and not look at things through rose-colored glasses, working with us is a huge opportunity that will highly benefit you. What we'll do is we'll look at I always tell my clients, change management starts day one, and it starts in the way that people respond to the questions, their body language, the way that how excited they are, how you can see that they're dreading coming in and talking to the consultants, kind of like we're in office space and we're talking to the Bobs. It's those types of things that help us to inform the strategy that we put together. Are we expecting there to be intentional resistance where one team doesn't want to give up their spreadsheets? Is it unintentional where people are excited but they don't know that they want to make a change because they've done it this way for so long? There's so many different variables that go into the change plan that we help to craft for our clients, that we do put together a very comprehensive strategy. And I don't know how you do this work without doing that.
Absolutely. My favorite meetings to sit in on are what I call the WTF moment, of where we present our organizational assessment to the executive teams, who are so pumped and, again, have those best of intentions
Mm-hmm.
for giving their team new tools. And they have truly no idea, especially on the department level, what areas of resistance that we may have uncovered, or areas in which they're not aware that there's some sort of cultural level to understanding that. And that's going to be critical to having that knowledge as power in looking at a platform approach to ERP, no matter what the technology is, because it could be the brightest, shiniest, sparkliest, most intuitive technology with the most beautiful dashboards on the world. But if your team is not prepared to consume it or use it or feel as though they have the ability to understand it, then it's going to birth fear. And fear birth is operational disruption.
Yeah. I mean, those meetings are a lot of times fun, but sometimes they're tough. We see that there are leadership challenges too that we have to navigate. A lot of times users need to be empowered, and that comes from a leadership decision where all these fields have been locked down, and now I have this perfect page, but there's no data on there because of a decision to not trust my people. And so we impact and influence change all the way from the leadership level down to the end users, and that comprehensive approach is so important to make sure that your transformation is successful.
100%. Absolutely. Well, this has been such an awesome conversation on so many levels. I always close out our trend series with asking you, what do you think a main trend for digital transformation or digital enterprise operations is going to be for 2024?
I think a big thing is going to be data aggregation tools. So the ability to take information out of different systems and compile them into a standard common data model, and then to be able to report on them. So some call them data lakes. There's a bunch of different terms that are floating out there between Fabric and some of these other things where I think people are realizing that technology is very expensive. And rather than buying new technology, there may be better ways to clean up your data, extract your data, and to move your data in a way that doesn't require you to invest in a whole brand new technology.
And that's actually such a good point, because a lot of times we see clients that come to us, and because we're technology agnostic and we only have a contract with the client, we don't care what you buy or what you buy, as long as it's going to help your business. We often recommend no technology and some process work and things like that, right?
Oh yeah, sometimes making no decision or cleaning things up before you make a decision is the better way to go. And I would much rather you um, you know write your own ship, get your ducks in a row, than just jump in and hope that a transformation will fix some of the issues with your leaky pipes.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mitch, for your time. And I'm excited to hear from our audience too about what you think the top trend for 2024 is going to be. And of course, as always, we'll aggregate those comments, look at them, and talk about them on future episodes. So thank you so much, Mitch, for joining us today. If you're hearing us on Ground Control, I hope you subscribe to our Transformation Ground Control podcast that comes out every Wednesday. If you're listening on Digital Stratosphere today, we bring you new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So subscribe to both of those podcasts to get your long form and short form content, all focused on digital enterprise operations and digital transformation. So thank you so much, Mitch, and we will see you next time.